Hi, welcome to the deep dive.
Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Today we're tackling a challenge that I think almost every single English learner faces at some point.
Exactly. It's a really common feeling. You
Yeah.
know a lot of vocabulary, maybe hundreds of words, but when it's time to speak, you feel a bit confused.
And why is that? It's often because the small, very common words have these big, confusing meanings.
Right, they do so many different jobs in a sentence.
They really do. So our mission today is to give you some key insights into 5 of these words. Just, about to, actually, only, and even. We're going to unpack the simple rule so you can use them with confidence.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with a phrase that's all about talking about the near future, but with real precision. Let's talk about to.
Yes, about to. The core idea here, the main use, is to show that something will happen very soon. Almost now.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, I think. We have to compare it to a word everyone knows.
Right.
Going to. Going to means the future, but it's a bit vague. If I say I'm going to leave, that could be in 5 minutes, it could be in an hour. There's no fixed time.
Exactly. But about to, that means the immediate future. It's happening very, very soon.
So timing is really the key here. The difference is all in the timing.
Absolutely. Let's look at an example. Think about dinner. If you say, I am going to eat dinner,
Okay.
that probably means, maybe in 30 minutes, the food might still be cooking.
But if you say I am about to eat dinner, that means the food is ready right now. It's on the plate, you're sitting down.
Precisely. The action is happening now or in the next few seconds. And this distinction is so powerful. You'll hear it all the time, especially when things are about to happen quickly.
Like at the cinema, you might hear, the movie is about to start.
Yes, which means you should sit down quickly.
Or at the station, the train is about to arrive. And I think a really common one is when someone calls you just as you were thinking of them. You'd say, wow, I was just about to call you. It means the thought was in your head at that exact moment.
Perfect example. It shows the action was seconds away from happening. Okay, next, let's tackle another tiny but very busy word, just.
Just. This word really carries a heavy load, doesn't it? It seems to do so many different things.
Is a real multitasker. What's fascinating is that just can mean either a short time ago or it can mean only.
Let's break that down. First, the time one.
Okay, so for time, if you say, I just arrived.
Right. That means you arrived a few moments ago, not an hour ago.
Exactly. And the second meaning only. This is often used to be polite. For example, I just wanted to ask a question.
Oh, I see. So it means you only wanted to ask a question. It makes the request sound smaller, more polite.
Yes, it limits the action. Now, a quick note on how it's used around the world. In British English, you'll often hear the present perfect, like, I have just been for a run.
And in American English.
You might hear the simple past tense more often, like, I just went for a run. But the meaning, a short time ago, is exactly the same.
Got it. And what about when it's not about time or being polite? I've heard it used to make things sound stronger.
That's the third use, as a powerful intensifier. It emphasizes a verb or an adjective.
So you could say something like, she's just crazy, or just look at this beauty.
Exactly. It adds emphasis. And finally, just so you know, there's a very formal use of just as an adjective meaning fairness. Like, our aim is to live in a just society.
Right, but that's something you'd read in a book, not something you'd hear in everyday chat.
Correct. For now, focus on time and only. Those are the most important.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on to the next one. Actually, this is a word that I hear beginners use a lot, maybe too much.
Yes, it can be overused. The main job of actually is to correct, clarify, or introduce the real situation.
So you use it when you think the other person might have a wrong idea or a false assumption.
Precisely. For example, if someone assumes you are free, you might say, actually, I am busy. You're correcting their assumption.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The problem comes when learners use actually when what they really mean is something else.
Right. They often mean to use an intensifier, like, really.
Can you give an example of that mistake?
A beginner might say, actually, I like your videos. Now that sounds a little strange. It sounds like you're correcting a false idea that they don't like the videos.
Ah, I see. So what should they say instead to show they like them a lot?
They should just say, I really like your videos. Really just intensifies the positive feeling. It adds strength.
So here's a good question to ask yourself before you use actually. Ask, am I correcting a misunderstanding or am I surprising the listener?
That's the perfect rule. If the answer is no, then just use a different word like really.
Great tip. Okay, now for our final two words. These are all about setting boundaries or expressing shock. Only and even.
Let's start with only. This one is fairly straightforward, but so important.
Right.
Only means no more than this. It puts a clear restriction on the quantity or the scope of something.
So if I say, I've only 5 minutes, I'm putting a restriction on my time.
Exactly. Or it's only a small problem. You're restricting the seriousness of the problem. It's not a big problem.
And now for the last one. The word for a bit of drama and surprise. Even.
Yes. Even is for surprise or emphasis. It often shows that something unexpected or extreme is true.
So you're showing that the reality is surprising compared to the expectation.
That's it. For example, even he didn't understand. The surprise here is that this person is usually smart, but he still failed to understand.
That's a great example. Or another common one. She didn't even call me.
Yes. The emphasis there is on the surprising lack of action. Calling is a basic, expected thing to do, and it didn't happen.
Okay, so we've covered 5 really nuanced words. Let's do a quick recap.
We have. And remember, these words are everywhere in daily English. You shouldn't avoid them because you're afraid of making a mistake.
That's so true. The goal is to start using them slowly and naturally. Confidence is always more important than perfect grammar, especially when you're starting out.
Absolutely. So we're now going to guide you through a short practice session. Please repeat these 5 sentences after the speaker. There will be a pause for you. And remember, practice slowly. That's perfect.
Okay, sentence 1. I just finished my work.
Pause for listener to repeat.
Sentence 2. I am about to eat.
Pause for listener to repeat.
Sentence 3.
Ah.
Actually, I need help.
Pause for listener to repeat.
Sentence 4. I have only one question.
Pause for listener to repeat.
And sentence 5. I didn't even think about it.
Pause for listener to repeat.
Great job. And don't worry about any mistakes. Just speak slowly. Like we said, confidence is more important than grammar.
By mastering these small words, you'll find you hesitate less, and your English will start to sound much more natural and confident.
This deep dive has really shown that focusing on the function of the word, is it about time, correction, restriction, surprise, makes them so much easier to use.
So what does this all mean? Well, these words are like tools for fine-tuning your meaning. When you use just or about to correctly, you're showing a very precise understanding of time, and that really boosts your clarity.
Practice every day, and just keep speaking English. You're already making great progress.
Before we go, here's a final thought for you to consider. If about to signals the immediate future, how might constantly using going to instead? How might that subtly change how native speakers see your sense of urgency or commitment?
Ooh, that's a good question. Something to think about until our next deep dive. Thanks for listening.